Hey Adam,
Hi.
I would like to know what does a Chinese medicine student really needs to learn in order to progress?
Okay, that is a good question. And maybe that's not a question with one answer or an easy answer, but I'll just kind of answer, um, I'll just answer what comes to me about that. Um, and I would put it this way. Um, what I require of, or ask of, or want of a student who comes to study with me is that they grasp the broad nature of Chinese medicine, the broad vision of Chinese medicine. Because I think that we have a tendency to think that acupuncture is what's involved, that we're going to learn, where the points are and how to use the needles and what the empirical sort of knowledge is about, which acupuncture points treat which problems. And of course, that's the skeleton of the knowledge system. That's the basis of, learning acupuncture. You've got to learn that stuff. But I would suggest that in order to, really be accomplished in Chinese medicine, and also in order to actually really be fulfilled in the practice of Chinese medicine, I think that it is good to learn all of the aspects of what could be involved in helping a person, come back into balance. Because when we think of illness, sickness, we think of imbalance, especially in Chinese medicine. That's fundamental to the philosophical underpinnings of Chinese medical theories. We're trying to find balance. So we're looking for what brings our patient back to balance. Now, I would suggest that in order to be able to bring a patient back into balance, you've got a number of tools at your disposal in Chinese medicine. But some of these tools are not taught, and some of them are not really emphasized when you go through an acupuncture school program. So, firstly, there's the physical nature of the art, which is, learn the points, learn how to use the needles, learn how to needle, learn all of that sort of physicality of what is acupuncture. But, I've taught at acupuncture schools for many years, and I have an observation about that, which is that many students of acupuncture don't really know how to touch somebody. And I would recommend that any student of acupuncture also study massage therapy, study acupressure. You can make a good argument that the descriptions of how we work with acupuncture points, that even in the the Neijing and the Nanjing and Jiajing and so on, they're based as much on palpation as they are on just the idea of needling. And I just have observed that over the years with many students, that those that knew how to touch and practiced the process of acupressure and massage and touching, they had an advantage over the students that didn't. And it makes sense, because it's kind of fundamental. What is an acupuncture point? The actual character in Chinese shui is a cave. Or if you want to even extend the meaning of that character a little further, you could think of it as the lair of an animal. So when you're working with an acupuncture point, which is, notice that the word point is not something that is used in Chinese, you're working with a landscape, right? The channels have their own landscape, they have their own qualities, they have their own element qualities. A channel can be damp, it can be dry, it can be tight, it can be blocked, it can be empty and deficient, it can be sort of piled up and blocked. And understanding the landscape of the channels, or the landscape of any particular zone of the body, is very, very advantageous and very useful for healing somebody. So if you're just focusing on the needles and putting the needle in, oftentimes you miss the tactile experience of feeling into and understanding the landscape of the body and the specific terrain that you're working with the acupuncture itself. So there's one thought that I have around that question is study acupressure. Touch all your patients, all the people that you're working on. Do as much palpation with your hands as you're going to do needling. Now, there are acupuncturists that would disagree with me, but that's my opinion. Secondly, when you're working with a patient, it's good to understand about the qi. Now, qi is not mysterious if you experience it. Qi is mysterious if you just base your understanding of qi on translations. So if you're just looking in, some Chinese English dictionary, well, what does qi mean? What does qi mean? And you find like 35 different definitions of qi. That is not helpful. That's not really helpful. Once you practice qigong, once you practice one of the qi arts, like maybe say Tai Chi or Bahua or one of the Neijia arts, once you work with qi and you start to build up qi in your own body, what happens through that process of studying the qi arts and practicing the qi arts every day is that you naturally and instinctively, without kind of quite knowing how necessarily or having to think about it, you'll start to be able to perceive the qi in your patient. So, honestly, when I first went to acupuncture school, I had been really kind of, I had gone deeply into the study of Qigong and Tai Chi for 10 years before I arrived in an acupuncture school. And so, honestly, I was kind of shocked. When I first arrived in acupuncture school in 1987, I was like, what's up with this? Like, how come the people I'm around are not really practicing a qi development art? Because I assumed, because that's what all my teachers did, and those were the people I was around, that was sort of so intrinsic to the practice of Chinese medicine. So I was really shocked when I got to acupuncture school to see that the students and the teachers, a lot of them didn't even actually cultivate the qi in their own body. So if you want to get good at acupuncture, get a qi art and practice it every day. Practice a form of qigong or tai chi or something. And that happens over time as you do that. One, your own qi will be strong enough to heal other people. Right? That's a normal byproduct. Two, your own health will be stable and strong, because anytime you're practicing your qi art properly, your health will normalize. Your to normalize. And then three, you start to be able to perceive, to feel or to see, or some combination of different ways of perceiving what's going on with the qi of others. Honestly, once you're working in the qi realm, you've got an advantage over somebody who just memorizes points from a book and sticks them in. Okay, so then a third thing. It says in the Jia Yi Jing, in the first line of the Jia Yi Jing, that the basis of acupuncture is that acupuncture is rooted in the Shen. Also, if we look at the first chapter of the Su Wen, they talk about the different stages of the development of the qi. They talk about the different the different types of people that used to live in antiquity. And if you start to really analyze this, you realize that a lot of what they're talking about in the Neijing is that there is a higher level of practice. And at one point in the Neijing, it talks about how the higher level practitioner, they see and they know. Now that quality of seeing and knowing is a Shen quality. If the Jia Yi Jing, which is really our first book of acupuncture that's sort of really consolidated and organized, its first line is that acupuncture is rooted in the Shen. Then we have to ask ourselves, like, what are we doing when we study acupuncture? And by the way, the study of acupuncture is never over. If you're an acupuncturist, you're always studying acupuncture. I've been like kind of immersed in the study of acupuncture and Chinese medicine for 40 years. It's never over. And so when you're studying Chinese medicine, it is very useful to study the Shen, to grasp the processes of the Shen. And what that means is work with your own emotional processes and work with what is called in psychology, they call it transference, countertransference. As you listen to your patient, as you listen to what's going on with them mentally, what's going on with them emotionally, feeling your own reactions and your responses, studying your own projection onto them. Pay attention to the Shen. The Shen is the space of the mind, the space of the emotions, the space of the attitudes, the space of the way of thinking about things, and the way that reality is held by the person in front of you. That can be an access point to shift things very, very fast. And all you've got to do is be present to yourself and be present to that. And the study of that becomes just an automatic part of your practice. You're being present to your own emotional and mental state. You're being present to that of the patient. Stay in attunement with yourself. One of the best tools for that is to be in therapy. And there are many other tools that can support that kind of presencing of what is the mental and emotional level. Okay? There's another level, which is the spiritual realm. Okay? So part of the practice of Chinese medicine is also that you're present to what's going on at the level of the spiritual access of the person, at the level of their ancestors, at the level of those beings that they may be connected to who've already died and passed on, what people call the guardian angels, or the different sort of entities and beings around people. That's not that hard to feel, right? There's this kind of game, I think, that is sort of played because we live in a materialistic paradigm as a society where that stuff is considered untrue or is considered woo-woo. And all I can say to that is, well, that's just inaccurate, it's wrong, it's an equally valid part of reality. And what you're doing as a doctor is you're trying to find where is the point where you can get leverage. Sometimes where you can get leverage is physical. You're gonna press on the points, you're gonna put needles in them. It's great, it works. It's what's needed. Sometimes where you're gonna get leverage is paying more attention to the chi body. What's going on with this person's chi process? Sometimes where you're going to get leverage is paying more attention to their emotions, to the mind, how they're thinking and feeling. Sometimes where you're going to get leverage to shift a situation in the direction of healing is pay attention to the spiritual realm. Pay attention to the ancestors. How do you do that? Well, meditation, involving yourself in theogenic ceremonies if you're into that kind of thing, involving yourself in cultivating what you might call a psychic awareness, a spiritual awareness. It's as critical, in my opinion, to the full, complete picture of the practice of Chinese medicine as anything else. So you see, you go into the study of Chinese medicine maybe with this narrow view, this sort of technical view, this frankly materialistic view that is inculcated as a result of Neo-Confucianism for thousands of years at this point. And now, of course, the materialist Marxist dialectic, which has dovetailed beautifully into the materialistic capitalist view of life, which is the dominant view on the planet now. And so you think that what you're studying is some sort of technicality, some sort of technical physical art, and it is. But it is 3 other levels higher, right? It's a chi art, it's a Shen art, and it's a spiritual art. And you don't have to be some sort of genius to access those other realms. You just have to practice it. If you practice it, you'll have good health because you keep your chi strong. You'll be happy because you keep your mind clear, your emotions clear. And you'll be spiritually connected, which is the fundamental, meaningfulness of life. At the same time as you're helping other people more effectively. Okay? That answer your question?
Yes.
Good.
It's a great explanation. Thank you
All right.
so much.
You're welcome.